This is the third video in a small series for how to use the normal table and StatCrunch to calculate probabilities with a normal distribution. We're using the same example. According to a study, the average number of faces an adult can remember, recall the face and remember the name, is 150. Let's assume a population standard deviation of 30 faces and a normal model. So the question now is, what percent of adults can remember between 125 and 200 faces? So let's draw a picture. What does this look like? We know we have a normal model. It says so. The mean is 150 faces. 125 is a little bit to the left of 150, and then 200 is over here on the right side, and we want to know between these two numbers. So I'm going to shade this area because this is what we want to find the probability or the percent of. Because there's two cutoff points, now we need to find two z-scores. So we need to do the z calculation of x minus mu divided by sigma for both 125 and 200. So when x equals 125, we get z equal to 125 minus the mean of 150 divided by the standard deviation of 30. Let's write this in here. So 125 minus the mean of 150 divided by 30, we get a z value of negative 0.83. Now let's repeat for x equals 200. Z is equal to 200 minus the mean of 150 divided by the standard deviation of 30, and we get a z-score of 1.67. These are rounded numbers because they do repeat, so we'll end up having just a little bit of rounding error when we work by hand, but it's known that when you work by hand there's going to be a little bit of error, and that's okay. All right, so we go to the normal table. We have two z values. We need to find two areas, and these are both going to be areas to the left. So negative 0.83, we go to the row that is negative 0.8 and the column that is 0.03. So here's our 0.03 column, and then go to the row that is negative, not 1.8, negative 0.8, and then the 00, 01, 02, 03 column. Here we go. 2033. I'm going to remember that, 2033, because that is the area to the left. Let's draw our standard normal distribution. 0, negative 0.83, draw our other z value, 1.67. So this area to the left of negative 0.83 is 0.2033. This is area to the left because that's what the normal table will only calculate. Way back in the day, someone had to do calculus to come up with these answers, so to make everything as easy as possible, they were consistent and only found area to the left of numbers. Otherwise, it would have taken a whole lot more handwork. Imagine doing this by hand, doing all the calculus, no computers. They made it as easy as possible, and that's why there's just one normal table, because they only needed to do those calculations a few thousand times. Now let's go to 1.67, back to the normal table. We need to go to the positive z values, 1.6 for the row and 7 for the column, so they intersect here at 9525. Now you might recognize these numbers because they were in the last two videos, and I did this on purpose. We have a little more practice and we're familiar with these numbers. All right, 9525. Well, again, this is area to the left. So I just found the area all the way in this direction, 0.9525. That's a lot more area. It's actually way more than we needed. When you find a between type problem, between two numbers, You find an area in the tail, you find an area covering way more stuff, and when you find the difference between those two numbers, you're left with this white space in the middle. So you're taking 95% and removing the 20% that you don't need. You're removing this right tail area. So the area in this middle section, which is what we want, we'll take 0.9525, subtract 0.2033, and this will give us the area in the middle. So go to the calculator, 9525 minus 2033. Let's try that again. 2033. We got 0.7492. So there's a 74, almost 75% chance that someone can remember between 125 and 200 faces. This area, I'm just going to round it to 75 because I'm running out of space a little bit here. And this area right here is about 75%. Now let's go to StatCrunch and do this problem. That was working by hand. StatCrunch will give us a similar answer. So with StatCrunch, again, we get to the calculator by going to Stat, Calculators, Normal. We want to do a between problem. So we're going to select between, and this actually saves us a little bit of time. We can put in our mean of 150, the standard deviation of 30, and then down below, this is where you put your two endpoints. We're finding a probability, that's what the P stands for. Probability that we are between 125 and 200 faces. So we'll just type in 125 and 200, push compute. The red area is shaded, just like we estimated on our paper. And here's our probability. Without any rounding error, no z-scores, it's just the true probability. 74988. So really close to that 75 number, we could say 7499.7499 would be our probability. If you want to add on the normal model, those tick marks to make it a little bit more readable, we can add that. But here we go, our second way of computing probabilities.